Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that a critical business application is experiencing an outage due to data corruption, and immediate restoration is required. The storage administrator must decide on the best course of action using IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. 1. Considering the potential for data loss and compliance violations, which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory adherence? Option A. Attempt to restore data from a backup that has already expired according to the TSM retention policy, as the data is urgently needed. Option B. Manually access and recover data directly from the storage media, bypassing standard TSM restore procedures to expedite the process. Option C. Permanently delete older non-critical data to free up space for more recent backups, assuming this will resolve the issue. Option D. Restore the corrupted data from the most recent valid backup that is still within the defined retention period, following standard TSM restore procedures. Correct answer is D. Restore the corrupted data from the most recent valid backup that is still within the defined retention period, following standard TSM restore procedures. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a storage administrator must balance the immediate need for data recovery with the long-term implications of data retention policies and regulatory compliance. The urgency of a critical business application outage creates pressure to act quickly, potentially bypassing established procedures. The challenge lies in making a decision that satisfies the immediate business need without violating the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) v7. 1 configuration, underlying data retention policies, or relevant, though unspecified in this context. We assume general data protection principles, regulatory frameworks that govern data lifecycle management. The administrator must exercise sound judgment to avoid data loss, ensure compliance, and maintain the integrity of the storage environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the capabilities of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. 1. To restore the data from the most recent valid backup, while adhering to the defined retention policies. This demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing data integrity and compliance. TSM v7. 1 is designed to manage backups and archives according to configured retention rules, ensuring that data is available for recovery within specified periods. Restoring from a valid backup that falls within the retention period respects these policies, minimizing the risk of accidental permanent deletion or non-compliance with data retention mandates. This approach ensures that the recovery process is auditable and aligns with the overall data governance strategy. Incorrect approaches analysis. 1 incorrect approach would be to attempt to restore data from a backup that has already expired according to the TSM retention policy. This is professionally unacceptable because it directly violates the configured retention rules, which are often established to meet legal, regulatory, or business requirements. Such an action could lead to data loss if the expired backup is no longer accessible, or if attempting to restore it triggers unintended data management actions. It also undermines the integrity of the data lifecycle management process and could result in non-compliance with data retention regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard TSM restore procedures and attempt to manually access and recover data directly from the storage media. This is highly unprofessional and risky. It bypasses the built-in error checking, versioning, and auditing capabilities of TSM, increasing the likelihood of data corruption or incomplete recovery. Furthermore, it would circumvent the established data governance and security controls, potentially exposing sensitive data and violating data protection principles. A third incorrect approach would be to permanently delete older, non-critical data to free up space for more recent backups without proper authorization or adherence to retention policies. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. Data retention policies are not arbitrary. They are often legally mandated. Unauthorized deletion of data, even if seemingly to improve system performance, can lead to significant legal repercussions, fines, and loss of trust. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of data governance and a disregard for compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should employ a structured decision-making framework. First, they must clearly understand the business criticality of the data and the immediate impact of its unavailability. Second, they must consult the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. One, documentation and their organization's data retention policies to understand the available recovery options and their compliance implications. Third, they should assess the available backups, noting their age and status relative to retention policies. Fourth, they should select the restore method that utilizes the most recent, valid backup within the retention period, ensuring it aligns with established procedures. If no suitable backup exists within the retention period, the next step would be to escalate the issue to management and legal/compliance teams to determine an authorized course of action, rather than making an unauthorized or non-compliant decision. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, compliant, and professionally sound. Question 2. Governance review demonstrates that the current approach to assessing the impact of changes to the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 environment is ad hoc and relies heavily on the tribal knowledge of a few senior administrators. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure robust change management and minimize operational risk? Option A. Implement a standardized, documented impact assessment process integrated into the change management workflow for all IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 modifications. Option B. Limit formal impact assessments to only major version upgrades of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1, considering minor changes to be low risk. Option C. Delegate all impact assessment responsibilities for IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 changes exclusively to the IBM vendor support team. Option D. Continue with the current informal knowledge sharing practice, assuming senior administrators possess sufficient expertise to identify all potential impacts. The correct answer is A. Implement a standardized, documented impact assessment process integrated into the change management workflow for all IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 modifications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT governance, where a recent governance review highlights potential risks associated with the current approach to impact assessment for changes within IBM Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) v7.1. The challenge lies in balancing the need for thorough impact assessment with the operational realities of managing a complex storage infrastructure. A failure to adequately assess the impact of changes can lead to service disruptions, data loss, compliance violations, and increased operational costs. The pressure to implement changes quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts, making a robust and well-defined impact assessment process critical. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a standardized, documented process for impact assessment that is integrated into the change management lifecycle for IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1. This process should mandate the identification of all affected components, dependencies, potential risks, and necessary rollback procedures before any change is implemented. This aligns with best practices in IT service management and governance, ensuring that changes are controlled, predictable, and minimize disruption. For a regulated environment, this documented process provides auditable evidence of due diligence, crucial for demonstrating compliance with internal policies and potentially external regulations related to data integrity and availability. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely on the informal knowledge of senior administrators. This is professionally unacceptable because it introduces significant risk. Informal knowledge is not documented, is subject to individual availability, and can be lost if personnel leave. It fails to provide an auditable trail, which is a fundamental requirement for governance and compliance. This approach also bypasses the structured risk mitigation steps that a formal impact assessment would identify. Another incorrect approach is to only perform impact assessments for major version upgrades of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1. This is a failure of due diligence. Many seemingly minor changes, such as configuration adjustments, patch installations, or even script modifications, can have significant and unforeseen impacts on data protection, retrieval, or system performance. Limiting assessments to major upgrades leaves the system vulnerable to disruptions from less obvious but still impactful changes. This selective application of impact assessment is not a defensible position from a governance or risk management perspective. A third incorrect approach is to delegate impact assessment solely to the vendor without independent verification. While vendor expertise is valuable, it is not a substitute for an organization's own due diligence. The organization ultimately bears responsibility for the stability and security of its data and systems. Relying solely on the vendor can lead to overlooking organization-specific dependencies or operational contexts that the vendor may not fully understand, thereby increasing the risk of unintended consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach impact assessment by first understanding the criticality of the system and the data it manages. A structured change management framework, which includes a mandatory, documented impact assessment phase, is essential. This assessment should involve identifying all TSM components, related applications, network infrastructure, and user groups that could be affected. It should also consider potential impacts on backup schedules, restore capabilities, data integrity, and system performance. Documenting potential risks and defining mitigation and rollback strategies are key. Regular training and reinforcement of the importance of this process for all IT personnel involved in TSM management are also crucial. This systematic approach ensures that changes are implemented with a clear understanding of potential consequences and appropriate safeguards are in place, thereby upholding operational integrity and governance standards. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate that IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 is approaching its end-of-support date. Which of the following actions is the most critical first step to ensure continued data protection and operational stability? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the risks of continued use, the costs and benefits of migration or upgrade options, and the potential effects on business operations and compliance. Option B. Focus solely on identifying the cheapest available alternative storage solution without considering the migration complexity or the impact on existing backup and recovery policies. Option C. Continue using IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 as is, assuming that no critical issues will arise before a new solution can be implemented at a later date. Option D. Immediately cease all backup operations using IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 to prevent any potential data corruption or security breaches associated with unsupported software. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the risks of continued use, the costs and benefits of migration or upgrade options, and the potential effects on business operations and compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT governance where a critical system, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) v7.1, is nearing its end of support. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for operational continuity and data protection with the long-term strategic and financial implications of upgrading or migrating. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to inform decision-making, ensuring that all potential consequences, technical, operational, financial, and regulatory, are understood before committing to a course of action. The regulatory framework for this exam, C2010-509, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7.1 Fundamentals, implies adherence to general IT best practices and potentially industry-specific regulations related to data retention and protection, though specific US or UK regulations are not explicitly mandated for this foundational exam. The focus is on understanding the implications of system lifecycle management. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers all facets of the TSM v7.1 environment. This includes evaluating the risks associated with continued use of unsupported software, security vulnerabilities, lack of vendor support for critical issues, potential compliance gaps, the costs and complexities of migration or upgrade paths, the impact on existing backup and recovery strategies, and the potential for business disruption. A well-executed impact assessment will provide the data necessary for informed strategic decisions, aligning IT investments with business objectives and risk tolerance. This represents best professional practice by proactively addressing potential issues, ensuring business continuity, and maintaining data integrity and availability, which are fundamental to IT service management. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the end-of-support notification or to delay a thorough assessment indefinitely. This failure to act proactively exposes the organization to significant risks, including data loss due to unpatched vulnerabilities, extended downtime if critical issues arise that cannot be resolved by IBM, and potential noncompliance with data retention or security policies if the unsupported system cannot meet evolving requirements. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the immediate cost of a new solution, without adequately assessing the long-term operational benefits, risks of inaction, or the total cost of ownership. This narrow focus can lead to suboptimal decisions that create future problems or fail to leverage new technologies effectively. A third incorrect approach is to assume that a simple in-place upgrade will resolve all issues without a detailed analysis of compatibility, data migration strategies, and potential downtime. This overlooks the complexities inherent in system lifecycle management and can lead to unexpected failures and disruptions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the critical system and its lifecycle status, e.g., end of support. 2. Initiate a formal impact assessment process. 3. Engage relevant stakeholders, IT operations, security, business units, compliance. 4. Document all potential risks, costs, benefits, and dependencies associated with different courses of action. 5. Evaluate these findings against the organization's risk appetite and strategic goals. 6. Develop a clear recommendation with a phased implementation plan. Question 4. Implementation of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. 1. Involves selecting a storage strategy, which approach to assessing the impact of this new storage solution on existing data governance policies and operational workflows is most professionally sound. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates technical, operational, and business implications, including alignment with data governance and regulatory requirements. Option B. Rely on informal discussions with IT staff who have prior experience with similar storage solutions to gauge potential impacts. Option C. Proceed with the TSM v7. 1. Installation based on the technical team's understanding of the system's capabilities, assuming minimal disruption. Option D. Focus solely on the technical configuration and performance metrics of TSM v7. 1. As this is the primary IT responsibility. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates technical, operational, and business implications, including alignment with data governance and regulatory requirements. Explanation: scenario analysis. Implementing a new storage solution, such as IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7. 1. Within an organization necessitates a thorough impact assessment. This process is professionally challenging because it requires balancing technical feasibility, business continuity, and adherence to potential regulatory requirements that govern data management and retention. The complexity arises from understanding how the new system will affect existing workflows, data integrity, security protocols, and the overall IT infrastructure without causing disruption. A failure to adequately assess these impacts can lead to unforeseen costs, operational inefficiencies, data loss, or non-compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the proposed TSM v7. 1. Implementation across various organizational domains. This includes technical impacts, e.g., hardware compatibility, network bandwidth, integration with existing applications, operational impacts, e.g., changes to backup and recovery procedures, user training needs, support staff readiness, and business impacts, e.g., potential downtime during migration, impact on service level agreements, SLAs, cost-benefit analysis. Crucially, this assessment must also consider any relevant data governance policies or industry-specific regulations that dictate data storage, retention, and accessibility. By proactively identifying potential risks and dependencies, the organization can develop mitigation strategies, allocate resources effectively, and ensure a smooth transition, thereby upholding operational integrity and meeting compliance obligations. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing a structured, risk-aware, and business-aligned implementation. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the implementation without a formal impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a lack of proactive risk management. This approach can lead to breaches of data privacy regulations if sensitive data is mishandled or improperly secured during the transition. It also violates ethical obligations to ensure business continuity and minimize disruption to services, potentially impacting clients or end users. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of the TSM v7. 1. Installation, such as hardware and software configuration, while neglecting operational and business implications, is another failure. This narrow focus can result in a technically sound system that is poorly integrated into existing workflows, leading to user frustration, inefficient data management, and a failure to meet business objectives. It overlooks the broader responsibility of IT to support business operations and can indirectly lead to noncompliance if data is not managed according to business requirements or regulatory mandates. Relying on anecdotal evidence or the experience of a few individuals without a structured assessment is also professionally unacceptable. This informal approach lacks the rigor required to identify all potential impacts and risks. It can lead to overlooked dependencies, underestimated resource needs, and a failure to anticipate unforeseen problems, thereby increasing the likelihood of operational failures and potential compliance issues. It undermines the principle of systematic evaluation and informed decision-making. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, phased approach to implementing new IT solutions. This begins with a clear definition of project objectives and scope. The next critical step is a comprehensive impact assessment, which should involve cross-functional teams, IT, business units, compliance, legal. This assessment should identify all potential positive and negative impacts, risks, and dependencies. Based on the assessment, a detailed implementation plan including mitigation strategies, resource allocation, and a rollback plan should be developed. Continuous monitoring and evaluation throughout the implementation and post-implementation phases are essential to ensure success and address any emergent issues. This systematic process ensures that technical solutions are aligned with business needs and regulatory requirements, fostering responsible and effective IT management. Question 5. Cost-benefit analysis shows that continuing to operate IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7, beyond its end-of-support date, presents significant risks, and a proactive approach is necessary. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound strategy for addressing this situation? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all dependencies, data criticality, and potential risks to data integrity and availability, informing a strategic migration or upgrade plan. Option B. Continue using IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7, until a critical failure occurs, then address the issue reactively. Option C. Prioritize the lowest cost solution for replacing IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7, deferring detailed analysis of operational and security implications. Option D. Immediately implement a new, unproven storage solution without a thorough evaluation of its compatibility and integration with existing systems. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all dependencies, data criticality, and potential risks to data integrity and availability, informing a strategic migration or upgrade plan. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management where a critical system, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM v7, is nearing its end of support. The professional is tasked with recommending a course of action, balancing operational continuity, cost, and compliance. The challenge lies in the potential for significant disruption and data integrity risks if the migration is not handled meticulously, especially given the regulatory implications of data retention and protection. The need for a robust impact assessment is paramount to avoid unforeseen consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that thoroughly evaluates the potential effects of the TSM v7, end of support on all relevant business operations, data, and systems. This assessment should identify dependencies, data criticality, and potential risks to data integrity and availability. It aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a proactive risk mitigation strategy. From a regulatory perspective, this thorough assessment ensures that any proposed solution will meet data protection and retention requirements, preventing potential noncompliance and associated penalties. It demonstrates due diligence in safeguarding organizational assets and operational continuity. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing to use TSM v7, beyond its end-of-support date without a clear mitigation plan is professionally unacceptable. It creates significant security vulnerabilities as patches and updates will cease, leaving the system exposed to known exploits. This directly violates the ethical responsibility to maintain secure systems and could lead to regulatory breaches related to data security and privacy. Implementing a new storage solution without a detailed impact assessment is also professionally unsound. This approach risks overlooking critical dependencies, data migration complexities, or compatibility issues, potentially leading to data loss, extended downtime, and significant operational disruption. It fails to meet the professional standard of careful planning and risk management, and could result in noncompliance with data integrity and availability regulations. Focusing solely on the cost of a new solution, without considering the operational impact and risks of the current unsupported system, is a flawed strategy. While cost is a factor, it cannot be the sole determinant when dealing with critical data infrastructure. This approach neglects the potential for much higher costs associated with data breaches, recovery from system failures, or regulatory fines due to noncompliance, all of which are amplified by using unsupported software. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a decision should adopt a structured, risk-based approach. The first step is to clearly define the problem. TSM V7. 1 is reaching end of support. Next, conduct a thorough impact assessment, identifying all affected systems, data, and business processes. This assessment should inform a risk register detailing potential threats and their likelihood and impact. Based on this, evaluate potential solutions, e.g., upgrade, migrate, replace, considering technical feasibility, cost, operational impact, and compliance requirements. The decision should be driven by a comprehensive understanding of risks and benefits, prioritizing data integrity, security, and regulatory adherence. A phased implementation plan with rollback strategies and rigorous testing is crucial for any chosen solution. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that an organization is planning to upgrade its IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7.1 environment. Which of the following approaches best ensures that the upgrade process does not negatively impact data integrity, availability, or regulatory compliance? Option A. Focus the assessment solely on the technical compatibility of the new TSM V7.1 version with the existing operating system. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the upgrade's effects on data protection policies, RPO/RTO targets, and existing recovery procedures. Option C. Implement the upgrade during a scheduled maintenance window without prior detailed analysis, assuming minimal disruption. Option D. Proceed with the upgrade immediately, relying on the vendor's release notes for any potential issues. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the upgrade's effects on data protection policies, RPO/RTO targets, and existing recovery procedures. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments where a critical storage management system, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, V7.1, is being upgraded. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the upgrade process, while aiming for improved functionality or security, does not inadvertently compromise the integrity, availability, or recoverability of critical data. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of storage systems with business operations and the potential for unforeseen impacts on data protection strategies. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to identify potential risks before they materialize, preventing data loss, extended downtime, and regulatory noncompliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the proposed TSM V7.1 upgrade against existing data protection policies, recovery point objectives, RPO, recovery time objectives, RTO, and regulatory compliance requirements. This includes analyzing how the upgrade might affect backup schedules, restore procedures, data retention policies, and disaster recovery plans. By proactively identifying potential disruptions to these critical functions and developing mitigation strategies, the organization ensures that the upgrade aligns with its business continuity and data governance mandates. This aligns with the general principle of responsible IT management, which emphasizes minimizing risk and ensuring operational resilience, a core tenet implicitly supported by any regulatory framework governing data handling and business operations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding with the upgrade without a formal impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and risk management, potentially leading to data loss or extended downtime, which could violate data protection regulations and breach contractual obligations to clients or stakeholders. Implementing the upgrade based solely on vendor recommendations without internal validation is also professionally unsound. While vendor guidance is valuable, it may not account for the specific nuances of an organization's environment, existing configurations, or unique business requirements. This can lead to unexpected incompatibilities or performance issues, jeopardizing data integrity and availability. Focusing the impact assessment only on the technical aspects of the TSM V7, one software itself, without considering its integration with the broader IT infrastructure and business processes, is another critical oversight. Data protection is not an isolated technical function. It is intrinsically linked to business operations. Neglecting this broader context means potential impacts on data accessibility, compliance with retention periods, and the ability to meet RPO/RTO targets may be missed, leading to operational and regulatory risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to system upgrades. This involves 1. Defining the scope of the assessment. Clearly outline what aspects of the TSM V7, one upgrade and its integration with the environment will be evaluated. 2. Identifying potential risks. Brainstorm and document all possible negative consequences of the upgrade, considering technical, operational, and business impacts. 3. Analyzing the likelihood and impact of each risk. Prioritize risks based on their probability of occurrence and the severity of their consequences. 4. Developing mitigation strategies. For high-priority risks, define actions to prevent, reduce, or manage them. 5. Documenting findings and recommendations. Create a clear report detailing the assessment results and proposed course of action. 6. Obtaining stakeholder approval. Ensure that all relevant parties understand the risks and agree with the mitigation plan before proceeding. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed proactively, and compliance with relevant standards and regulations is maintained. Question 7. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly concerned about data privacy and regulatory compliance when implementing enterprise storage solutions. A company is deploying IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7, 1. To manage backups for a diverse range of data, including financial records, customer personally identifiable information (PI), and internal operational data. The IT team is responsible for configuring TSM V7, 1. To ensure compliance with relevant U.S. federal and state data protection regulations. Which of the following configuration strategies best aligns with these compliance objectives? Option A. Rely on the default TSM V7, 1 configuration settings for backup and retention, assuming they are sufficient for general compliance purposes across all data types. Option B. Focus solely on ensuring the availability of all backed up data for immediate restoration, without specific consideration for data classification or regulatory retention mandates. Option C. Implement a uniform backup schedule and retention policy for all data types, prioritizing storage cost optimization and rapid data recovery for all datasets. Option D. Configure TSM V7, 1 with robust encryption for all backup data, implement granular access controls based on data classification, and establish data retention policies that strictly adhere to the lifecycle requirements defined by applicable U.S. federal and state regulations for each data category. The correct answer is C. Implement a uniform backup schedule and retention policy for all data types, prioritizing storage cost optimization and rapid data recovery for all datasets. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments where data protection and compliance are paramount. The professional is tasked with implementing a critical storage management solution, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7. 1. While adhering to specific regulatory requirements. The challenge lies in balancing the technical implementation with the legal and ethical obligations concerning data privacy and security. Misinterpreting or neglecting these requirements can lead to severe consequences, including data breaches, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential impact of incorrect decisions on data integrity, availability, and confidentiality. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the data classification and retention policies mandated by the relevant regulatory framework. This means identifying sensitive data, understanding its life cycle, and configuring TSM V7, 1 to align with these policies. Specifically, this includes implementing appropriate backup schedules, retention periods, and access controls that meet or exceed regulatory mandates. For instance, if the data is classified as personally identifiable information (PI) under a specific U.S. regulation, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare data or state-specific privacy laws, the TSM configuration must ensure that backups are encrypted, access is strictly controlled, and data is retained for the legally required duration, with secure deletion thereafter. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core compliance obligations, safeguarding sensitive information and mitigating legal and financial risks. It demonstrates a proactive and responsible stance towards data governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to prioritize only the technical performance and cost efficiency of the TSM v7. One implementation without adequately considering data classification and retention policies. This could lead to inadequate security measures for sensitive data, insufficient retention periods for legally mandated data, or improper disposal of data, all of which constitute regulatory and ethical failures. For example, failing to encrypt backups of PII would violate privacy regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a one-size-fits-all backup and retention strategy across all data types, regardless of their classification or regulatory requirements. This would likely result in overtension of non-sensitive data, increasing storage costs and potential exposure, and undertension or inadequate protection of sensitive data, leading to non-compliance. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of due diligence in protecting client or customer information. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on vendor default settings for TSM v7, one without validating them against specific regulatory requirements. Vendor defaults are often generic and may not meet the stringent demands of specialized regulatory frameworks, leading to potential compliance gaps. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should adopt a systematic decision-making process. First, they must identify and thoroughly understand all applicable regulatory frameworks and internal data governance policies relevant to the data being managed by TSM v7. 1. This involves consulting legal counsel and compliance officers. Second, they should conduct a comprehensive data classification exercise to categorize data based on sensitivity, regulatory requirements, and business value. Third, they must translate these classifications and policies into specific TSM v7 configuration settings, including backup frequency, retention policies, encryption, access controls, and disaster recovery plans. Fourth, ongoing monitoring, auditing, and regular review of the TSM v7 configuration and its alignment with evolving regulations are crucial. This iterative process ensures continuous compliance and robust data protection. Question 8. Investigation of a financial services firm's IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. One environment reveals that while backups are completing without reported errors, there is a growing concern about the actual recoverability of critical client data and adherence to a mandated 7-year data retention policy. The IT operations team has been primarily focused on ensuring that backup jobs finish on time and that storage capacity is managed efficiently. The firm is subject to strict financial industry regulations regarding data preservation and auditability. Which of the following actions best addresses the firm's potential compliance and data integrity risks? Option A. Proactively delete backup data that TSM reports as available to optimize storage utilization, even if the data falls within the 7-year retention period, to reduce operational costs. Option B. Manually inspect a small, random selection of backup files from different storage pools on a quarterly basis to confirm their existence. Option C. Implement a scheduled process to regularly run TSM's data verification utilities on a representative sample of backup data and cross-reference the retention dates of critical datasets against the configured retention policies within TSM. Option D. Rely solely on the absence of error messages during TSM backup operations, assuming that if no errors are reported, the data is intact and compliant with retention policies. The correct answer is C. Implement a scheduled process to regularly run TSM's data verification utilities on a representative sample of backup data and cross-reference the retention dates of critical datasets against the configured retention policies within TSM. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of data integrity and the potential for data loss in a storage management environment. The core issue revolves around ensuring that data backed up by IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7, one is not only recoverable, but also adheres to retention policies, which are often dictated by regulatory compliance. The need to balance operational efficiency with the strict requirements of data retention and auditability makes careful judgment essential. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the need for verifiable data integrity and compliance with retention policies. By performing regular, documented checks of backup data integrity and verifying that retention rules are correctly applied and enforced by TSM, an administrator ensures that the organization can meet its legal and business obligations. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of data loss and audit failures, which can have severe financial and reputational consequences. Adherence to TSM's built-in features for data verification and retention management is paramount. An incorrect approach that involves simply relying on the absence of error messages from TSM is professionally unacceptable. This is because TSM's error reporting might not capture all forms of data corruption or policy misconfiguration. It creates a false sense of security and fails to meet the due diligence expected in data management. This approach risks regulatory noncompliance if data is found to be unrecoverable or if retention periods are violated during an audit. Another incorrect approach, which is to manually verify a small, arbitrary sample of backup data without a systematic process or documentation, is also professionally unsound. While it involves some level of checking, it lacks the rigor and comprehensiveness required for critical data. The sample size may not be representative, and the lack of a documented procedure makes it difficult to prove compliance or to troubleshoot issues consistently. This approach is insufficient for meeting audit requirements and leaves the organization vulnerable to undetected data integrity problems. Finally, an approach that prioritizes freeing up storage space by prematurely deleting data that may still be under a retention policy, even if TSM indicates it is available, is a direct violation of data retention regulations. TSM available status might refer to its availability for restore, not its compliance with retention schedules. This action can lead to severe legal penalties and loss of trust during audits, as it demonstrates a disregard for established data governance policies. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the organization's data retention policies, relevant regulatory requirements, and the capabilities of the TSM v7 system. Administrators should establish a regular schedule for data integrity checks, leverage TSM's reporting and verification tools, and ensure that retention policies are accurately configured and consistently enforced. Documentation of all procedures and verification results is crucial for audit readiness and demonstrating due diligence. Question 9. What factors determine the appropriate configuration of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7 retention policies to ensure compliance with data archival regulations? Option A. The specific industry sector of the organization and the legal jurisdiction governing its operations, which dictate mandatory data retention periods and formats. Option B. The perceived likelihood of data being needed for future business analysis or operational recovery, irrespective of legal mandates. Option C. The storage capacity available on the TSM server and the cost-effectiveness of different retention levels. Option D. The default retention settings provided by IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7 assuming they are universally applicable. The correct answer is A. The specific industry sector of the organization and the legal jurisdiction governing its operations, which dictate mandatory data retention periods and formats. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data retention and compliance within the context of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7 The core difficulty lies in balancing the business need for efficient storage management with the absolute requirement to adhere to specific regulatory frameworks governing data retention periods. Misinterpreting or misapplying these regulations can lead to severe consequences, including legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The professional must possess a deep understanding of both TSM's capabilities and the applicable regulatory landscape to make informed decisions. The correct approach emphasizes a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the defined regulatory framework for data retention. This involves identifying all relevant regulations applicable to the data being stored, understanding their specific retention requirements, e.g., how long data must be kept, in what format, and under what conditions, and configuring TSM accordingly. This represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the legal and compliance obligations. By prioritizing regulatory compliance, the professional ensures the organization avoids penalties, maintains its integrity, and upholds its duty of care to its clients and stakeholders. This proactive and compliant stance is a cornerstone of responsible data management. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings by prematurely deleting data, without regard for mandatory retention periods, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This directly violates data protection and archival laws, potentially leading to fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on TSM's default retention settings without verifying their alignment with specific regulatory mandates, is also professionally unacceptable. TSM's defaults may not be sufficient or appropriate for all regulatory environments, and assuming they are adequate without due diligence is a failure of professional responsibility. Furthermore, an approach that focuses only on technical performance of TSM, neglecting the underlying compliance requirements, demonstrates a critical misunderstanding of the system's purpose in a regulated environment. The system's technical efficiency is secondary to its ability to meet legal obligations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive identification of all applicable regulatory requirements. This should be followed by a detailed mapping of these requirements to the data being managed and the capabilities of TSM. Configuration and operational procedures should then be designed to explicitly meet these mapped requirements. Regular audits and reviews are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to any changes in regulations or business needs. This systematic, compliance-first approach ensures that technical solutions like TSM are implemented in a manner that supports, rather than undermines, legal and ethical obligations. Question 10. When evaluating a sudden and significant performance degradation impacting a critical business application that relies on IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7, one for backup and archival, what is the most professional and risk-averse initial course of action to diagnose the root cause? Option A. Contact the application vendor to inquire about recent application updates that might be causing increased backup load. Option B. Review TSM activity logs, performance monitoring dashboards, and client-side trace files to identify specific bottlenecks or error patterns before making any configuration changes. Option C. Immediately increase the storage pool's maximum capacity and adjust retention policies to free up space, assuming the issue is storage-related. Option D. Initiate a full system diagnostic trace on all TSM servers and clients to capture detailed operational data for analysis. The correct answer is C. Immediately increase the storage pool's maximum capacity and adjust retention policies to free up space, assuming the issue is storage-related. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data management where a critical business application's performance is directly impacted by the storage system's configuration. The pressure to resolve the performance issue quickly, coupled with the potential for data loss or corruption if storage operations are mishandled, creates a high-stakes environment. The administrator must balance immediate operational needs with long-term data integrity and compliance requirements, all within the context of the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7, environment. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance degradation without introducing new risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven investigation using TSM's built-in diagnostic tools and best practices. This aligns with the fundamental principles of IT service management and data governance, which emphasize understanding system behavior before making changes. Specifically, leveraging TSM's monitoring capabilities, e.g., activity logs, performance metrics, client-side traces, allows for the identification of bottlenecks without directly altering the production environment. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences, such as data corruption or extended downtime, and ensures that any subsequent remediation steps are targeted and effective. This adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of responsible data management and system administration, ensuring business continuity and data availability. Incorrect approach is analysis. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement drastic storage configuration changes, such as increasing retention policies or deleting inactive data, without a clear understanding of the performance issue's origin. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses diagnostic steps, increasing the risk of data loss or unintended service disruption. Such actions could violate data retention policies and potentially lead to non-compliance with data governance mandates. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on anecdotal evidence or user complaints without verifying them with system-level data. This can lead to misdiagnosis and wasted effort, potentially exacerbating the problem or introducing new ones. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to professional standards of system administration. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first establishing a clear understanding of the problem through observation and data collection. This involves utilizing the tools and features provided by the TSM V7, one system to gather relevant metrics and logs. Next, they should formulate hypotheses based on the collected data and test these hypotheses in a controlled manner, ideally in a non-production environment if possible, or with minimal impact on production. Changes to production systems should only be made after thorough analysis, risk assessment, and with a clear rollback plan. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are mitigated, and the integrity of the data and the system is maintained, aligning with professional responsibilities and implicit regulatory expectations for reliable IT operations. Question 11. Quality control measures reveal that a critical daily backup job in IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7.1 has completed without the expected verification step, and a system alert has been generated. The operations team is under pressure to complete scheduled maintenance tasks before a critical business period begins. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Proceed with the daily backup job as normal, but flag it for a more thorough review at a later date. Option B. Escalate the alert to the senior management team for guidance on how to proceed. Option C. Immediately initiate a full verification process for the unverified backup to confirm its integrity before proceeding with any other tasks. Option D. Continue with the scheduled maintenance, assuming the backup is likely successful and addressing the alert later. The correct answer is C. Immediately initiate a full verification process for the unverified backup to confirm its integrity before proceeding with any other tasks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data integrity and compliance within an IBM Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) V7.1 environment. The core issue is the potential for data corruption or loss due to an unverified backup process, which directly impacts the reliability of disaster recovery and business continuity plans. The challenge lies in balancing operational efficiency with the absolute necessity of ensuring data protection, especially when faced with time constraints and resource limitations. Adherence to established best practices and regulatory guidelines is paramount to mitigate risks and maintain trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately halting the unverified backup process and initiating a comprehensive verification procedure. This aligns with the fundamental principles of data management and IT governance, emphasizing data integrity and availability. From a regulatory perspective, while the C2010-509 exam syllabus does not specify a particular jurisdiction's laws, it implies adherence to general IT best practices and potential industry standards for data protection. Verifying backups is a critical control measure to ensure that data can be successfully restored, which is often a requirement for business continuity and disaster recovery compliance. This proactive stance prevents potential data loss and ensures that the organization can meet its recovery objectives, thereby upholding its operational and potentially regulatory obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing the backup process without verification is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for data integrity and a potential violation of internal policies or industry best practices that mandate verified backups. This approach prioritizes speed over reliability, creating a substantial risk of unrecoverable data in the event of a disaster. Ignoring the alert and assuming the backup is successful is another critical failure. It represents negligence and a lack of due diligence in managing critical IT infrastructure. This passive approach can lead to severe consequences, including data loss, business disruption, and reputational damage, and may contravene any implicit or explicit requirements for proactive system monitoring and maintenance. Escalating the issue without attempting any immediate verification or mitigation is also professionally unsound. While escalation is sometimes necessary, it should follow an initial assessment and attempt at resolution. This approach bypasses essential troubleshooting steps and can lead to unnecessary delays in addressing a potentially critical issue, indicating a lack of initiative and problem-solving skills. Professional reasoning. Professionals in IT infrastructure management must adopt a risk-aware and proactive decision-making process. When faced with system alerts or anomalies, the first step should always be to investigate and understand the nature of the issue. This involves consulting system logs, documentation, and performing diagnostic checks. In this case, the alert regarding unverified backups necessitates immediate attention. The decision-making framework should prioritize data integrity and system reliability. This means stopping potentially compromised processes, verifying critical operations, and only resuming or proceeding once confidence in the data's integrity is established. Escalation should be a subsequent step if the issue cannot be resolved independently or if it poses an immediate, unmanageable threat. This systematic approach ensures that risks are identified, assessed, and mitigated effectively, upholding professional standards and protecting organizational assets. Question 12. System analysis indicates that the primary IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7.1 server is experiencing significant performance degradation due to the accumulation of a large volume of historical data. This data is required for potential long-term compliance and audit purposes, but is no longer actively accessed for daily operations. The IT team needs to implement a strategy to improve server performance while ensuring the historical data remains accessible and compliant with retention policies. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Configure Tivoli Storage Manager to automatically migrate historical data that meets defined age or access criteria to a separate archive storage pool or a dedicated archive server, ensuring it remains accessible for compliance needs. Option B. Advise business units to reduce their data backup frequency to lessen the load on the primary Tivoli Storage Manager server. Option C. Implement a policy to permanently delete all historical data older than a specified period to free up space and improve performance on the primary server. Option D. Develop a manual process where IT staff retrieve historical data from the primary server on a case-by-case basis when requested for audits or compliance checks. The correct answer is A. Configure Tivoli Storage Manager to automatically migrate historical data that meets defined age or access criteria to a separate archive storage pool or a dedicated archive server, ensuring it remains accessible for compliance needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data management, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with the imperative of data security and compliance. The organization is experiencing performance degradation due to a large volume of historical data on its primary Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) server. This data, while potentially valuable for long-term compliance or infrequent audits, is actively hindering the performance of day-to-day operations. The challenge lies in finding a solution that addresses the performance issue without compromising data integrity, accessibility for legitimate purposes, or adherence to any applicable data retention policies. The professional must consider the technical implications of different TSM configurations and the potential impact on business operations and regulatory standing. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging TSM's tiered storage capabilities to move less frequently accessed historical data to a more cost-effective and performance-appropriate storage tier. This typically involves configuring TSM to automatically migrate data to archive storage or a separate archive server after a defined period or when it meets certain access criteria. This strategy directly addresses the performance bottleneck by reducing the active dataset on the primary server, while ensuring that the historical data remains accessible for compliance and audit purposes, albeit with potentially longer retrieval times. This aligns with best practices for storage management, optimizing resource utilization and cost-effectiveness without violating data retention requirements. It demonstrates a proactive understanding of TSM's features to solve a business problem within operational and compliance constraints. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deleting historical data without a proper retention policy review or legal hold is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Directly violates data retention mandates, which are often dictated by industry regulations or legal requirements. Such an action could lead to severe penalties, legal repercussions, and reputational damage. Implementing a solution that requires manual intervention for every data retrieval request from historical archives introduces unacceptable operational overhead and increases the risk of human error, potentially leading to missed compliance deadlines or data unavailability. This approach fails to provide a scalable or efficient solution for managing historical data and undermines the purpose of a robust storage management system. Ignoring the performance issue and continuing with the current configuration, despite its negative impact on business operations, represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility. It demonstrates a lack of proactive problem solving and can lead to decreased productivity, increased operational costs, and potential business disruption, indirectly impacting the organization's ability to meet its obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should first conduct a thorough assessment of the current data landscape, including data types, access patterns, and existing retention policies. They should then consult relevant compliance documentation and legal counsel to understand all regulatory requirements regarding data retention and accessibility. The next step is to evaluate TSM's features and capabilities, such as tiered storage, archiving, and replication, to identify solutions that align with both technical requirements and compliance mandates. A phased implementation approach, with thorough testing and validation, is crucial to ensure the solution effectively addresses the performance issue without introducing new risks. Continuous monitoring and periodic review of the storage strategy are essential to adapt to evolving business needs and regulatory landscapes. Question 13. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to data lifecycle management within IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7. 1. Particularly concerning the retention of critical business data. Considering the need to balance compliance requirements with efficient storage utilization, which of the following strategies best aligns with professional best practices for data retention and archival in TSM V7? 1. Option A. Prioritize immediate cost savings by configuring TSM to aggressively expire data shortly after it is backed up, regardless of any specific retention mandates or potential future business needs. Option B. Implement a tiered retention policy that leverages TSM's active delete and archive copy group functionalities to retain data based on its criticality and regulatory requirements, while also optimizing storage usage through appropriate data movement and expiration. Option C. Establish a single, long-term retention period for all data types within TSM, applying it uniformly to all backups and archives to simplify management, even if it exceeds regulatory requirements for some data. Option D. Focus solely on the frequency of backups, ensuring data is backed up as often as possible, and defer the configuration of specific retention policies and expiration dates until a data recovery incident occurs. The correct answer is B. Implement a tiered retention policy that leverages TSM's active delete and archive copy group functionalities to retain data based on its criticality and regulatory requirements, while also optimizing storage usage through appropriate data movement and expiration. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, balancing the need for robust data protection with the operational realities of resource constraints and evolving business requirements. Specifically, it touches upon the critical aspect of data retention and backup strategies within IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, V7. 1. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principles of data lifecycle management and compliance within the context of TSM's capabilities, ensuring that data is protected and accessible for the required duration without incurring unnecessary costs or operational overhead. Careful judgment is required to align technical implementation with business needs and regulatory mandates. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a thorough understanding of TSM's data retention capabilities and their alignment with compliance requirements. By implementing a tiered retention strategy that leverages TSM's features, such as active delete policies and archive copy groups. An organization can ensure that data is retained for the legally mandated periods while also optimizing storage costs. This approach is professionally sound as it directly addresses the core requirements of data protection, compliance, and cost efficiency, which are paramount in storage management. It reflects a proactive and strategic mindset, anticipating future needs and regulatory changes. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost reduction by prematurely deleting data without considering retention policies or legal obligations represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to noncompliance with data retention laws, resulting in severe penalties, reputational damage, and potential legal liabilities. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing overly aggressive backup schedules without a clear understanding of data criticality or retention needs can lead to excessive storage consumption and operational complexity, negating the benefits of efficient data management. Furthermore, an approach that ignores the need for regular testing of backup and restore procedures, even if retention policies are technically met, fails to ensure data recoverability, which is a fundamental ethical and professional responsibility in data protection. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of business requirements, regulatory obligations, and technical capabilities. This includes 1. Identifying all relevant data types and their associated retention periods based on legal, regulatory, and business needs. 2. Understanding the specific features and limitations of the chosen storage management software, in this case, IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7. 1. 3. Designing a data retention strategy that maps data types to appropriate TSM retention policies and storage tiers. 4. Regularly reviewing and testing the implemented strategy to ensure its effectiveness and compliance. 5. Documenting all policies and procedures for audit and future reference. Question 14. The monitoring system demonstrates a recurring alert indicating potential inconsistencies in the TSM database's internal checksums for a specific storage pool. This alert has appeared intermittently over the past 24 hours, but no client data access issues have been reported. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate initial response for a TSM v7? 1. Administrator. Option A. Log the alert in a general system event log and continue monitoring for further occurrences without immediate intervention. Option B. Immediately initiate a full backup of the affected storage pool and run a database integrity check. Option C. Investigate the TSM server's activity logs for related errors and consult IBM documentation for specific troubleshooting steps related to checksum alerts before taking further action. Option D. Schedule a full database restore from the most recent successful backup to ensure data integrity. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a full backup of the affected storage pool and run a database integrity check. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the administrator to interpret complex system alerts and determine the appropriate course of action without immediate human oversight. The challenge lies in distinguishing between routine, non-critical events and potential data integrity issues that could have significant consequences. IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7. 1. As per the exam's regulatory framework, mandates adherence to best practices for data protection and availability. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes immediate investigation of alerts that could indicate data corruption or loss. This aligns with the fundamental principles of data management and the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining data integrity and recoverability. Proactive identification and resolution of potential issues before they escalate are crucial for ensuring business continuity and compliance with data retention and protection policies. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring or deferring action on alerts related to data integrity failures would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such inaction could lead to data loss, which violates the core responsibilities of a storage administrator. It also exposes the organization to potential non-compliance with data protection regulations, which often stipulate requirements for data integrity and availability. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility in safeguarding critical organizational assets. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately reverting to a previous backup without thorough investigation, could also be problematic. While seemingly proactive, It might unnecessarily disrupt operations or lead to the loss of recent, valid data if the alert was a false positive or a minor, easily resolvable issue. This demonstrates a lack of analytical judgment and could be seen as an inefficient use of resources, potentially impacting service levels. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of alerts. This includes understanding the severity and potential impact of each alert, cross-referencing with system documentation and known issues, and prioritizing actions based on the risk to data integrity and availability. When in doubt, consulting with senior administrators or support personnel is a prudent step, but the initial assessment and triage should be based on a solid understanding of TSM's operational principles and the potential consequences of inaction. Question 15. The evaluation methodology shows that a storage administrator is tasked with managing data disposition with an IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7. 1. The organization has established a comprehensive data retention policy that specifies different retention periods for various data types. The administrator needs to ensure that data is properly removed from the system once its retention period has expired, while also maintaining compliance with the policy. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to professional best practices for data disposition in this context? Option A. Configuring TSM to automatically expire and delete data based on the defined retention policies. Option B. Deleting data from the TSM server immediately after its perceived usefulness has ended, regardless of policy. Option C. Relying on end users to report when data is no longer needed for deletion. Option D. Manually reviewing each data object to determine its retention status before initiating deletion. The correct answer is D. Manually reviewing each data object to determine its retention status before initiating deletion. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows that understanding the nuances of data retention and disposition is critical for IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM V7. 1. Administrators. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency, cost management, and strict adherence to regulatory compliance regarding data lifecycle management. Misinterpreting or misapplying retention policies can lead to significant legal liabilities, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core requirement of data disposition as defined by the organization's policies and relevant regulations. By systematically identifying and processing expired data for deletion, the administrator ensures that the storage environment remains optimized. Costs are controlled by avoiding unnecessary storage of obsolete data, and the organization remains compliant with its own data retention schedules and any applicable industry-specific or general data protection laws. This proactive and policy-driven method minimizes risk and demonstrates responsible data stewardship. An incorrect approach that involves simply deleting data without verifying its retention status or without following a defined disposition process is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a direct violation of data governance principles and potentially regulatory mandates. It exposes the organization to risks of accidental deletion of data that is still required for legal, audit, or business purposes, leading to non-compliance and potential legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on manual checks for large volumes of data, is inefficient and prone to human error, increasing the likelihood of non-compliance or operational disruption. This demonstrates a lack of robust process and an abdication of responsibility for systematic data lifecycle management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding and implementing the organization's established data retention and disposition policies. This involves leveraging TSM's built-in functionalities for automated retention management and disposition, conducting regular audits to ensure policy adherence, and staying informed about evolving regulatory requirements. When faced with data disposition tasks, the process should always begin with a clear understanding of the data's classification, its associated retention period, and the approved disposition method, ensuring that all actions are documented and auditable. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that different departments within an organization have varying data retention requirements due to regulatory compliance and operational needs. The legal department requires a minimum 7-year retention for all case-related documents, while the marketing department needs immediate access to campaign assets for up to 2 years. The IT department is concerned about storage costs and wants to optimize retention for less critical data. Considering the capabilities of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7, 1. Which approach best addresses these disparate requirements while ensuring compliance and cost-effectiveness? Option A. Implement a single, organization-wide retention policy in TSM V7, one that sets a conservative retention period of 10 years for all data to ensure compliance across all departments. Option B. Prioritize the IT department's storage cost concerns by setting a uniform 2-year retention policy for all data across all departments. Option C. Develop a custom scripting solution outside of TSM V7, one to manage data retention based on departmental needs, bypassing TSM's native policy engine. Option D. Configure distinct management classes within TSM V7, 1. Each with specific retention periods and backup schedules, and assign these management classes to the respective client nodes or groups representing each department. Correct answer is D. Configure distinct management classes within TSM V7, 1. Each with specific retention periods and backup schedules, and assign these management classes to the respective client nodes or groups representing each department. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data management where different departments have varying requirements for data retention and access, potentially conflicting with a unified storage strategy. The professional challenge lies in balancing these departmental needs with the overarching goals of data integrity, compliance, and efficient resource utilization, all within the framework of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, V7, 1 capabilities, ensuring that data is retained for the legally mandated periods, while also allowing for timely access for business operations, requires careful planning and configuration. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging TSM's policy-based management to define distinct retention and backup schedules tailored to each department's specific regulatory and operational needs. This aligns with best practices for data governance and compliance. By creating separate management classes and associating them with specific client nodes or groups, administrators can enforce granular control over data lifecycle management. This ensures that sensitive data is retained for the required duration, while less critical data can be managed more cost-effectively. This approach directly supports the principle of least privilege and data minimization where applicable, while adhering to retention mandates. Incorrect approaches analysis. Applying a single, uniform retention policy across all departments is professionally unacceptable because it fails to acknowledge the diverse regulatory landscapes and business requirements that govern different types of data. This could lead to overretention of data, incurring unnecessary storage costs, or worse, under-retention of critical data, resulting in non-compliance with legal or industry-specific mandates. Such a blanket approach ignores the nuances of data classification and risk assessment, which are fundamental to responsible data management. Implementing a custom script to manage retention outside of TSM's native policy engine is also professionally unsound. While it might seem like a flexible solution, it bypasses the integrated audit trails, reporting capabilities, and robust error handling that TSM's policy management provides. This creates a shadow IT environment for data retention, making it difficult to ensure consistency, track changes, and demonstrate compliance to auditors. It also increases the risk of human error and system vulnerabilities. Ignoring the specific retention requirements of the legal department in favor of a general IT policy is a critical ethical and regulatory failure. Legal data often has stringent and specific retention periods dictated by law and litigation holds. Failing to adhere to these requirements can expose the organization to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of critical evidence. Professional practice demands prioritizing legally mandated retention periods. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first conducting a thorough audit of data types and their associated regulatory retention requirements across all departments. This involves close collaboration with legal, compliance, and departmental stakeholders. Subsequently, TSM's policy management features should be configured to reflect these findings, creating distinct management classes with appropriate retention periods, backup frequencies, and access controls. Regular review and testing of these policies are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and operational efficiency. The decision-making process should be guided by a risk-based approach, prioritizing compliance and data integrity. Question 17. The efficiency study reveals that the TSM V7, one-tiered storage configuration, which moves inactive data to tape, exhibits longer data retrieval times for archived files compared to the configuration that keeps all data on disk. Considering the operational and compliance implications, which of the following represents the most appropriate interpretation and recommended course of action for managing these two TSM V7? 1. Environments. Option A. The efficiency study's findings necessitate an immediate increase in the disk storage pool size to accommodate all data, thereby eliminating the need for tape-based archival. Option B. The tiered storage configuration is performing as expected for archival data, and the focus should be on ensuring that the tape recall process meets defined recovery time objectives and regulatory data availability requirements. Option C. The primary objective should be to reduce the cost of storage by maximizing data migration to tape, even if it means accepting significantly longer retrieval times for all data. Option D. The longer retrieval times for archived data indicate a fundamental flaw in the tiered storage strategy, and all data should be consolidated onto disk for consistent, fast access. The correct answer is B. The tiered storage configuration is performing as expected for archival data, and the focus should be on ensuring that the tape recall process meets defined recovery time objectives and regulatory data availability requirements. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant disparity in data retrieval times between two different Tivoli storage manager, TSM V7, configurations. One configuration utilizes a standard disk-based storage pool for active data, while the other employs a tiered storage approach, moving less frequently accessed data to tape. The professional challenge lies in interpreting these performance metrics within the context of IBM's recommended practices and potential regulatory compliance requirements for data retention and accessibility, without resorting to purely mathematical optimization. The goal is to ensure both performance and adherence to service-level agreements, SLAs, and data governance policies. The correct approach involves a holistic assessment that considers not only retrieval speed, but also the cost-effectiveness and compliance implications of each tier. For active data on disk, faster retrieval is expected and aligns with immediate access needs. For data on tape, slower retrieval is acceptable for archival purposes, provided that the process for recalling data meets defined recovery time objectives, RTO, and regulatory mandates for data availability. This approach represents best professional practice because it balances performance with the fundamental requirements of data management, including cost, security, and compliance, as outlined in IBM's TSM V7. Documentation and general IT governance principles. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on minimizing the disk footprint by aggressively migrating data to tape, even if it impacts the RTO for critical data. This fails to acknowledge that while tape offers cost savings, it introduces latency in data access. Another incorrect approach would be to disregard the tiered storage strategy entirely and keep all data on disk, which, while ensuring fast retrieval, would lead to escalating storage costs and potentially exceed budget constraints without a clear justification based on access frequency or regulatory necessity. A third incorrect approach would be to implement tape recall processes without adequate testing or documentation, risking delays in data recovery that could violate SLAs or regulatory requirements for data accessibility in case of an audit or disaster. Professionals should approach such scenarios by first understanding the business requirements for data access and retention. This includes identifying critical data, defining RTOs and recovery point objectives, RPO, and understanding any regulatory obligations related to data availability and retention periods. Then they should evaluate the TSM V7, configuration against these requirements, considering the trade-offs between performance, cost, and compliance for each storage tier. Documentation of these decisions, along with regular performance monitoring and validation of recall processes, is crucial for maintaining an effective and compliant storage environment. Question 18. The assessment process reveals that a company is struggling to consistently enforce its data retention policies for archived data within IBM Tivoli Storage Manager V7. 1. While some data is being deleted after its retention period expires, other data remains indefinitely, and there's a concern about accidental deletion of data that should still be retained. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge while adhering to data management best practices and regulatory considerations? Option A. Configure TSM server-side retention and deletion policies to automatically manage data based on defined retention periods, ensuring that data is retained for the required duration and then securely deleted. Option B. Utilize operating system-level commands to delete files directly from the TSM storage pool when their retention period is deemed to have passed, bypassing TSM's management functions. Option C. Implement a strategy of retaining all archived data indefinitely to avoid any risk of premature deletion, regardless of retention policy requirements. Option D. Manually review and delete archived data on a case-by-case basis when storage capacity becomes a concern, without relying on automated TSM policies. The correct answer is A. Configure TSM server-side retention and deletion policies to automatically manage data based on defined retention periods, ensuring that data is retained for the required duration and then securely deleted. Explanation: the assessment process reveals a common challenge in data management, balancing the need for data accessibility with the imperative of data protection and compliance. In the context of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, v7, 1. Understanding the nuances of data retention and deletion policies is critical. This scenario is professionally challenging because misinterpreting or improperly implementing these policies can lead to severe consequences, including regulatory fines, loss of critical data, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that data is retained for the legally mandated periods, while also being securely and permanently deleted when no longer required, adhering to both business needs and regulatory frameworks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly aligns with the principles of data lifecycle management and regulatory compliance. By leveraging TSM's built-in retention and deletion functionalities, administrators can establish clear, auditable policies that ensure data is managed according to defined rules. This proactive and policy-driven method minimizes the risk of human error and ensures that data is handled consistently and in accordance with any applicable regulations, such as those governing data privacy and record keeping. An incorrect approach that relies on manual deletion without proper policy configuration or verification fails to establish an auditable trail and introduces significant risk. This can lead to the accidental deletion of data that is still under a retention requirement, violating compliance mandates. Conversely, an approach that prioritizes indefinite retention without considering deletion policies can lead to excessive storage costs and potential noncompliance with data minimization principles, which are often embedded in privacy regulations. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on operating system-level deletion without TSM's awareness, bypasses TSM's management capabilities, rendering its retention and protection features ineffective for those specific files, and potentially leading to data loss or non-compliance with TSM-based backup and recovery strategies. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all relevant regulatory requirements and business policies concerning data retention and deletion. This understanding should then inform the configuration of TSM's retention and deletion policies. Regular audits and verification of policy implementation are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and data integrity. When faced with ambiguity, seeking clarification from legal or compliance departments is a professional necessity. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that an organization is struggling to manage the lifecycle of its critical business data within IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. 1. Leading to concerns about both compliance and storage costs. The primary objective is to ensure that data is retained for the legally mandated periods and then securely removed. Which of the following configurations within TSM v7 1 best addresses this dual requirement? Option A. Setting a very short uniform retention period for all data in TSM v7, 1 to maximize storage efficiency and minimize costs. Option B. Configuring TSM v7, 1 to retain all data indefinitely to ensure no critical information is ever lost, regardless of its age or relevance. Option C. implementing a comprehensive data retention policy within TSM v7, one that defines specific retention periods for different data types, coupled with automated deletion processes for expired data. Option D, manually deleting data from TSM v7, one on an ad hoc basis, whenever storage space becomes a concern, without reference to any defined retention schedules. The correct answer is C, implementing a comprehensive data retention policy within TSM v7, one that defines specific retention periods for different data types, coupled with automated deletion processes for expired data. Explanation: the assessment process reveals a common challenge in data protection and storage management, balancing the need for data retention for compliance and business continuity with the costs and risks associated with storing excessive data. In the context of IBM Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM v7, 1. Understanding retention policies is crucial for adhering to regulatory requirements and optimizing storage resources. This scenario is professionally challenging because misinterpreting or misapplying retention policies can lead to significant legal penalties, financial losses due to unnecessary storage costs, and potential data loss if data is deleted prematurely. Careful judgment is required to align technical implementation with legal and business objectives. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core requirement of data retention as mandated by relevant regulations. By configuring TSM v7, 1 to adhere to defined retention policies, an administrator ensures that data is kept for the legally required period and then securely disposed of. This proactive configuration minimizes the risk of non-compliance, reduces storage costs by eliminating obsolete data, and maintains data integrity. This aligns with the principles of data governance and responsible data lifecycle management. An incorrect approach that involves deleting data before its mandated retention period expires represents a direct regulatory failure. This could lead to severe penalties, including fines and reputational damage, if an audit reveals noncompliance with data retention laws. Another incorrect approach, such as retaining data indefinitely without a clear policy or business justification, leads to inefficient storage utilization, increased costs, and potentially greater risk in the event of a data breach, as more data is exposed. Furthermore, it can complicate e-discovery processes and hinder compliance with data minimization principles. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the applicable regulatory framework for data retention relevant to their organization's industry and jurisdiction. This involves consulting legal counsel and compliance officers. Subsequently, they must translate these requirements into clear, actionable retention policies within TSM v7. 1. Regular review and auditing of these policies and their implementation are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and efficiency. The decision-making process should prioritize adherence to legal mandates, followed by operational efficiency and cost-effectiveness, always with a focus on data security and integrity. Question 20. The performance metrics show a significant increase in backup completion times and a corresponding rise in client-side query response delays within the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager v7. 1. Environment. The TSM server's CPU utilization is within normal parameters, but disk I/O wait times on the storage pool volumes have noticeably increased. What is the most appropriate initial step to diagnose the root cause of these performance issues? Option A. Review TSM client-side logs for specific error messages related to data transfer or communication timeouts. Option B. Focus solely on optimizing network bandwidth between clients and the TSM server, as increased client delays suggest a network problem. Option C. Immediately restart the TSM server and all associated client services to clear any potential temporary glitches. Option D. Analyze TSM server disk I/O performance metrics and investigate potential bottlenecks on the storage pool volumes, including disk health and configuration. The correct answer is D. Analyze TSM server disk I/O performance metrics and investigate potential bottlenecks on the storage pool volumes, including disk health and configuration. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where performance degradation impacts critical business functions. The professional challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the performance issues within the IBM Tivoli Storage Manager (TSM) V7. One environment, considering the potential for multiple contributing factors. A hasty or incomplete diagnosis can lead to incorrect remediation, wasted resources, and prolonged service disruption, all of which have significant business and potentially regulatory implications if data availability or integrity is compromised. The need to balance immediate action with thorough investigation is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of TSM V7 performance metrics, focusing on identifying anomalies that correlate with the reported performance degradation. This includes examining client-side issues, network latency, TSM server resource utilization, CPU, memory, disk I/O, and the status of TSM database and recovery log. By correlating these metrics with the timing of the performance issues, a precise root cause can be determined. This methodical approach aligns with best practices for IT service management and ensures that remediation efforts are targeted and effective, minimizing downtime and ensuring compliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, which are often implicitly or explicitly tied to data availability and performance. Incorrect approach is analysis. An incorrect approach would be to immediately assume a single cause, such as a network issue, and implement a solution without comprehensive data analysis. This bypasses the critical step of verifying the diagnosis and could lead to misallocation of resources and failure to address the actual problem. For example, if the issue is actually TSM server disk I/O contention, focusing solely on network troubleshooting would be a regulatory failure if it leads to prolonged inability to back up or restore data, potentially violating data retention policies or disaster recovery mandates. Another incorrect approach would be to restart TSM services without understanding the underlying cause. While this might temporarily alleviate symptoms, it does not resolve the root issue and could mask critical problems, leading to recurrence and potential data corruption if the database or recovery log is involved. This lack of due diligence in troubleshooting can be seen as a failure to maintain a secure and reliable data management system, which could have regulatory implications depending on the industry and data type. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured troubleshooting methodology. This typically involves 1. Problem identification, clearly defining the symptoms and impact. 2. Data collection, gathering relevant performance metrics and logs from all components involved, clients, network, TSM server. 3. Hypothesis generation, forming educated guesses about potential causes based on the collected data. 4. Hypothesis testing, systematically verifying or refuting each hypothesis through further investigation or targeted tests. 5. Solution implementation, applying the fix once the root cause is confirmed. 6. Verification, ensuring the problem is resolved and does not recur. This systematic process ensures that decisions are data-driven and that remediation is effective and efficient, upholding professional responsibility for data integrity and availability.